everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of Theresa and David's podcast. I am Theresa.
And I'm David, and if you're wondering why you can't see us, it's because
we're not ghosts.
You can only hear us. This is going to be part one of, we believe, 2 parts of us really telling a full version of our story, how we met, how we got to where we are right now. It's in celebration of our anniversary, which from the time we're recording this is less than 2 hours away.
Woo!
And we decided we wanted to go with just audio today.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to have a halftime, and so if there's any prolonged silences at any point in time, it probably means we are making out. Just stay tuned, and we'll get right back to the deets. All the deets.
Before we dive in, I just want to say happy anniversary.
Yeah, happy slightly early anniversary.
Yeah, and we're so excited
2
that
years.
you guys are listening to this and wanting to be a part of our lives. And yeah, I'm just excited to share our story.
I am too. The truth is that where we are now is we want to do anything we can to make it so that we spend every moment possible together. That's our goal in life, is to work to get to that place. But it took a while for us to even have that vision in mind. And I guess without any further preamble, this is David and Theresa Forever, acronym DTF.
Oh, okay. Cover your ears if you're a child. No, I'm just kidding. Let's dive in.
Please do. Why don't you take it away first?
Oh my gosh, I feel like butterflies already.
Yeah? Tell me
this
about
is
it.
such a crazy story that we have, and that's why we're doing it in multiple parts, because
Oh, we realized as we were going, this is going to be way too much. We're gonna just ramble for 2 full hours. So who knows exactly how long this will take. We're getting started now, but we're doing you a favor and breaking it down into 2 parts. And I think we start at the beginning, which is the first time that one of us saw each other.
Mm-hmm. I love this so much. Okay. So, David, the first time I saw you.
Yeah.
This is like one of my favorite parts of the story. I entered Gordon as a young freshman, very excited about the world, and one of my favorite things was going to see shows. And so my friend Kelly, shout out to Kelly, took me to see a show at Gordon, and they were doing Sweeney Todd. And it was a student-run show, and it was just so great. And we were loving the show, and Kelly nudges me, and she, we're just watching it. She nudges me, and she says, "Oh my gosh, okay, this person coming on the stage right now, his name is David Alvarado, and he is like so handsome, and like everybody knows him, everybody loves him." And I was like, "Oh, okay, like whatever." And, in those moments where it's like a spotlight it's like, oh, well, this was an actual spotlight in that moment. This was a real spotlight and a metaphorical spotlight.
Terry, we didn't have any spotlights in that show. Maybe
Wait,
you
really?
did just see it for real. No, yeah, sorry.
I was like, okay.
Well, that would be way cooler. Sorry.
So David comes out on stage, and he's playing the character of Antony, of course, because he's such a beautiful person and has the most angelic voice I've ever heard. And so he comes out and he starts singing, and I'm just like, okay, I get what Kelly means. I get it. So from then on, it was like David Alvarado was like the coolest guy in school.
Yeah, and we've been over this before. You know that a college doesn't have a football team when someone who does theater is the coolest person in school, according to you and your friends, which I'm not complaining about because it meant you were interested.
Yeah. Before I move on to the first time you met me, now when I saw you, it wasn't like, oh, love at first sight. You just hit your knee. Are you okay?
Yes.
So it wasn't like love at first sight. It was like there was just something special. Like you were just so handsome. I could just keep going on. So we'll move on. But
I'll tell you exactly what it is. If you're wondering, if you're reaching, what was that ethereal something, that gravity that drew me to him? I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was the makeup that I had on. Hear me out. No, listen, hear me out. We did a very specific makeup. They wanted Anthony to not look quite as baby-faced. Not my words. That was their words, as I did. They wanted him to seem a little more manly, and so they use like this like sponge thing to put like what looked like a 5 o'clock shadow on my face.
I don't even remember that.
Immediately fell in love with that and was like, can I take this kid home? Because I've just never been able to like grow a full beard or anything, but if I could, that exact level of shadow is exactly what I would rock all the time.
Yeah.
So I had just that glimpse of like, that's what it could be. That's
But
what it could look
no,
like.
it definitely, that's not why.
I think
was
that's what it
attracted
was.
to you. Okay, moving on.
Well, moving on. That was all unbeknownst to me. I was just singing my little heart out. And then the first time that I see Terry, again, in a performance context, we both were going to be performing in our school's talent show.
On my birthday.
It was on your birthday.
It was on my birthday.
It's so crazy. October 5th. Coming up. A little more than a month away. Happy birthday. You're an old lady.
Happy birthday.
And it was a similar thing where it's not like a lot of first times that you see somebody is like, oh, you just bump into someone. Hey, we're in the same class. My name's whatever. Your name's whatever. You had already seen me. I didn't really know that. I didn't know you were aware of who I was. But then I saw you doing a rehearsal of your group's number. Mm-hmm. And your talent with your group was we were all different dancers, kind of hip hop style dancing, little bit of break dancing, and I don't know how else you would describe the like Scott Hall. What does he do?
He specifically does tutting, so he was like but he does kind of like to like dubstep tutting.
Yeah. Anyways, it was all that was the vibe that was going on, and let me just say at a private Christian college, that in general was going to stand out no matter what. Yeah. But then this girl with like she had long hair at the time, blonde hair, and she's got this like hat on and these like kind of those pants that you're wearing. I remember they were like kind of baggy and stuff.
I wore joggers before everybody knew about joggers. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I really want to take time out of this story to talk about that. No, I'm joking. It's a joke. So and again, it wasn't like, ooh, this is love at first sight or something. It was just something was like, that is a different person there. And it was this sense of like, I just want to know who this is. And she's doing her breaking and she's just crushing it. And I was like, I definitely have to know who this is. And so I walked up to you because I was like, yeah, I just want to know who you are. And I introduced myself, and I'm not going to lie, I've kind of told this just a little bit before. I wanted to put on just a little bit of like I'm not like, bad to the bone or something, but I got a little toughness about me, maybe a little swag, because I just seen you, doing hip hop dancing, so I got to seem like I got some of that. And what was so funny to me is that was so not your vibe at all. I kind of expected that to be more your personality. And that's what we thought was so funny is that first time seeing each other was in a performance context, but it also was like musical theater isn't really my vibe, you know, even within the theater department, because I was a theater major in school, I wasn't like going to all of these shows. I can't quote, all of them back to you. It just is because it happened to touch something inside of me in a specific way that I was like, I want to express myself in this way. And I feel like you were similarly with
absolutely.
Dance.
Yeah, and that's so interesting, and like to see that and to know you now, and to like when we were putting this whole podcast together, really understanding that for the first time, I was like, wow, that is crazy to look at it that way. In a different context.
And that is how we first saw each other. That is how we met. There was definitely an instant connection. Like this was more than just your average person that you're meeting. But it was not, again, it was not something that there was like some kind of love or romantic connection right away, but there was a gravity that we always seemed to have about each other.
That's a good word for that.
I mean, and this is important to also establish what our situations romantically were at that point in time, which for me,
where were we at in life?
right. So for me, I was with someone and it had been a long-term relationship.
And I was like, coming to college, I was like, you know what? College is going to be for growth for me. So I am purposefully not going to date in college. That was just a personal choice that I made and felt convicted about. So there was no like we were both in a place where it was like, I just want to get to know you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was really important, I think, for us at the beginning. So there you go. The stage is set. And really the next big milestone was I had this act that I put together that was kind of like a senior thesis type of project. And I asked Theresa to be in it. So my project was a one-man show. You're probably wondering, then why would you need anyone else to be in your show if it's a one-man show? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the joke of this show was that everyone else in the cast was female. And that was the joke that I made at the very top. I walked out on stage and I said, hey, I said it was a one-man show.
Oh my gosh.
If you are thinking that sounds self-aggrandizing and shallow, you are exactly right. That is exactly the kind of person in a lot of ways that I was at that point in time. But I'm certainly glad that I was, because it led me to this point where I was looking specifically for, girls, women, young women, I guess. It sounds weird to say.
Looking for young
I was looking for
women.
girls. And there's like no words to use that don't sound weird. But I was looking for performers that were female that to do whether it was singing, sketch, comedy. It was kind of like a all-encompassing type of show.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, I know this girl who dances very well, and let me ask her. And that was like a very, very important moment. And it would not be the last important question that I would ask you. Foreshadowing. You guys already know we're married.
But yeah, no, that, like, just from my perspective, that moment meant like a lot to me, because for a lot of reasons. I mean, I already expressed the like googly eyes I had, for him in a very subdued and internal way, like knowing that like he was with somebody, so no lines were going to be crossed. But he asked me to be in this show, and of course I'm like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And then I go to my friends, I'm like, David Alvarado just asked me to be in his senior show, and I'm freaking out. But I was truly flattered. Like, that is the definition of feeling flattered, is when you ask me to be in your senior show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check Webster. But
It says it there.
I think that was the beginning of a real friendship. And, we had to rehearse, so it was more than just obviously performances. And we choreographed a dance, a partner dance together. And so there was a lot that went into that. And we always had this ability to just kind of be ourselves. Around each other,
Yeah, it's because that, like, for a couple reasons. One is like just the vulnerability of the situation of dancing, and then we'll get into that. But then also the pressure that is just taken off in general when excuse me.
God bless you.
When, like, you just acknowledge that you're in a relationship. And I don't want to be in a relationship, so we're just friends. Like, we're just truly going to be ourselves.
Yeah, it didn't ever really need to be said out loud, but there was this sense of, like, that is closed off.
Yeah.
That whole side of things.
Romance.
So even though there was this for sure friendship connection right away. There was this physical closeness because we're dancing together. And yeah, you were talking about it being vulnerable. I think for both of us in different reasons. I'll just say for myself, it's because kind of like the dance part of the trifecta has always been something that I was self-conscious of and not really had any training, but it's still something that has always connected with me on a deep level. And so for me to even include it in my show at all almost didn't happen. And so it was great for us to also have that in common.
Yeah.
So, but for you, like, why did it feel vulnerable to you?
Yeah, and like that's so cool that we were able to share that in the different ways. Because, I mean, if you guys watch our podcast, you guys know that I love to dance, but I've never been trained. So I've never like been to classes and like had that formal training. So, you know, the vulnerability of just like I'm just putting myself out there and trying something that I have an absolute passion for and a connection to dance, and the opportunity to explore that, it was just such a blessing in my life. And you know, definitely vulnerable in the sense of like I'm not confident in really anything I'm doing because I've never tried it before. I've never tried a lyrical partners dance.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we're
Because it's
both in
not
that
like we.
boat of like, let's just throw ourselves out there and try it.
Yeah, and I should have specified it. Yeah, it was kind of a lyrical type of, you know, ish, some ballroom dance elements to it. But it was not like it was hip hop, which was more
No,
your jam.
Yeah.
And again, we got to just land on exactly the same page together. And it was always disarming to feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that those I always looked forward so much to the rehearsals that we would have together because we would spend half the time just like laughing and joking about whatever, and half the time, you know, choreographing and rehearsing, and it was a lot of fun.
It was really fun. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just, you know, being able to do that was amazing, and just adding in that like it opened a lot of doors for me to like explore dance more, and like learn more about myself. But the whole like situation of dancing with you, and how do I feel, and like, you know, it left me conflicted because I'm like, okay, I can't like you in that way because you're with someone. And so I'm not going to even like think about that. And all the while my friends are like, "Oh, like you have a crush on him and stuff like that." And I'm like, "No, I don't. It's truly just friendship." Which it was, because like we were cutting ourselves off to that like romance, but you could tell it was there. And so now, you know, I'm like in my mind like you know, just whirling. Yeah.
Yeah, well, also a big, I think this is important to touch on, is that really a big part of who I was, especially through high school and college, was very flirty and wanting to kind of find self-value from, you know, people thinking that I'm attractive in some way, whether it's physically or, you know, talented or whatever it is. In a lot of ways, that's what drove me, and I found myself not having the kind of friendships that I would have wanted to be able to have with girls specifically, because there was always that other element kind of running in the background. And for whatever reason, my friendship with you seemed to exist outside of that.
Yeah.
And it was something very different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such an interesting perspective. It was like we were both able to let go of any sort of like whirling or confliction and just be like, I enjoy you, and we're creating something together as human beings, and like having this kindred spirit type thing, and like just enjoying being with each other and not having the pressure of being flirty, or like, you know, I had, like I mentioned, told myself that I didn't want to date in college, so that was a hard no. and wanting to stick to that conviction no matter what my brain is thinking or my heart is thinking. And yeah, no, it was an immediate feeling like I could just be myself too.
Yeah, and at that age and in that time, it's easy to have all of these social anxieties or self-consciousness or things come up that will um, hinder or just complicate a relationship, any kind of friendship, whether it's between people that could potentially be romantically attracted to each other or not. But we just seem like we landed at this place where it's like a puzzle, like pieces fit in just the right way, where we had kind of just met each other, but we were already, I was felt more myself hanging out with you than a lot of the friends I had had for years.
Yeah. And I didn't write this down, so David doesn't know I'm going to say this, but during our rehearsals, I got hurt pretty bad because I had never danced like
right.
that.
We were doing different lifts and things that involved, I only know from a few shows that I had been in, like the male part of lifting in the partnering, so I didn't even know what to exactly tell you how to protect yourself.
And I had no training or looked up any YouTube videos, which I probably should have beforehand. And I didn't really stretch much either because I didn't know about like that either. And like I had to work through the pain in your show, and even back then, which was so funny, I was like, LOL if I end up with David because like he gave me this injury.
He's killing me.
No, but I just always thought that was funny. And the show itself, your one man show, went really well. I think our part went the best. I wasn't really paying attention to the rest.
And listen, it was a lot of fun, but it was not something deep and meaningful. Like I was not a deep and meaningful person in many ways at that point in time. I think a lot of my contemporaries were ahead of me from a maturity standpoint. And the truth is, there was a lot of like jokey stuff. I wrote a whole collection of like poems and puns that was just like little haha things, or I was proud of a few of the sketches that I wrote, and several of the pieces of the performance. But the only real risk that I took at all, like the only real honest moment, was at the very end, and it was our number dancing together. And I think there's a reason why that was the part that connected with people out of anything. I mean, I did like a last minute lip syncing dancing to Justin Timberlake. Why? Just to try to do another thing. Like no artistic value attached to that whatsoever.
Yeah. But our dance was that pocket of your future of craving that depth in your life. I feel like that was a little opening. And at the very end of your show, you thanked all of the people in your show by writing letters. I don't know what anybody else has said, but you wrote me a really wonderful letter, and I showed it to my friend Allie. Shout out to Allie. I love you so much. She called our love story from the beginning. She read this letter, a thank you letter that he wrote to thank me for being in the show, and she was like, he's in love with you. And I was like, no, Allie, he's not. I swear, we're just friends. And she was like, did you read this letter? And I was like, yes, but you don't understand. And like, as what we've been explaining, it's like, it is hard to explain. But she knew it from the beginning. She always knew. Yeah,
something.
She's a smart cookie, Allie. But yeah.
All right, so that was the real big way that we connected, and I'm glad that we took the time to explain like how it just solidified as like this deep, and it felt like permanent kind of friendship, and it happened so quickly. After that show was over, time is passing by. We did like filmed a series of prank calls together. That was like a random thing that we had in common that we talked about during rehearsals. We're like, oh, we should do this thing together.
Yeah.
You know, and then like, you know, summer's going by and we're back in school.
And we, you know, because we're just hanging out, we're being buds, but you know, we're also, you know, getting more involved in our theater. And I was a comm major at the time and getting really connected. And David and I and one other person was asked to be, I guess like we're not
ambassadors.
Ambassadors, yes,
That's
thank
what they
you.
called us. They gave us blue scarves.
They
and
did
called us
give
ambassadors.
And we were invited to the Celebration of Faithful Leadership dinner that they have at Gordon College, which is such a great event honoring someone in the community who is like just taking steps, you know, to be a good role model.
I'm a role model.
In the Christian community. And that year it was Patricia Heaton.
The thing is, I feel so bad because I'm sure she's done so much rewarding acting work in her life, but everyone's like, listen, she's the wife from Everybody Loves Raymond. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Patricia, to do you wrong like that, but that's just what it is. That's who you are. And she was lovely.
Yeah, she was. Wait, was she in Everybody Loves Raymond?
Yeah, the wife from Everybody
That's
Loves
so
Raymond.
funny.
That's
I
how
thought she was
people
in
know
a
her.
different show.
She was
Sorry.
tiny, by the way.
Oh yeah, she was a tiny. Yeah.
We're getting in the weeds. The point is, we both went to this event, and so we got to hang out with each other again. It was just another one of those little moments that we happened to be intersecting, and it was again in this context of you know, actors that are also Christians, and you and I both kind of connected in this way, talking about our future and what we might want to do.
That was the biggest thing, like being invited and connecting in this, like not just like on a lower scale but on a bigger scale, meeting someone who's doing what we want to do, and like and meeting these people who are influencing our society. I mean, it was just so cool to like experience that with you. I was like, oh my gosh, like what are you doing here? Because we didn't know we were gonna both be going.
Yeah, I guess maybe somebody asked me to go. I really don't remember.
We were asked because there was like 3 of us who were like leading in the theater comm department that got to specifically meet Patricia Heaton, and that was us.
I didn't pay a lot of attention to much that was going on in life at that time.
Yeah, but another
I'm happy I went.
Small, like notable moment was going back from the Celebration of Faithful Leadership dinner. Students went on a bus, and David sat next to me, and that was a really big deal for me. And we shared music, and you let me listen to your music that you were listening to, and it was like, it felt like a very young, you know, we're young.
Yeah, I know,
and
that's
we're
classic.
like just classic.
It's
we're
iconic.
just, yeah, it is iconic, and we're just like, you know, being buds, and like I'm like, oh, he's sitting next to me.
Buds with buds.
Girls will totally know how I feel, even if you can't see me. You can hear in my voice. I'm just like blushing.
Now we're umming at the same time. And just to emphasize again, really, this was just a friendship. Even if you were feeling that way, or you know, and there's an undeniable attraction that I always had to you in different ways, but there wasn't some romantic thing happening yet. We were just hanging out now and then. We both kind of were like running in different circles in life.
Yeah, I
know?
mean, you were a whole year. I'm like stuttering. A whole year older than me in school, and you just got me giddy. That's all. I'm just putting myself back in these moments. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just crazy to see God work in our lives. It's insane, you guys. So we're running in totally different circles, and you know, you're this cool guy, and I'm just, you know, a little sophomore. I was junior or sophomore, something like that.
There's nothing cooler than a guy who knows how to apply his own eyeliner.
Totally.
So again, next big milestone, I think, kind of fast forward to around Christmas time, end of that semester.
I'm just reminded of something. You have to remind me at the end of this section to tell everybody something that we didn't write down.
What?
So it's like Christmas time.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if this is before or after this, but we went caroling.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe
I
we
know,
didn't.
I know.
Okay.
That's why I was like, we have to talk about it. You guys. Oh my gosh.
Um, that that may have been at the beginning of the next semester, weirdly, or end of this one. No, it was at the end of the
It was
semester.
at
But
yeah.
the point is, yeah, we just again. The point of the little bit of rambling that's happening is
Yeah.
that there were these little pockets when all of a sudden would be intersecting, because it's not like we were friends that were hanging out on the daily,
Right.
but we just happened to wind up together in these different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And we went Christmas caroling, and the reason I did it at the time with my friend Will was so that we both could get a free haircut. That's why we were like, sure, let's definitely go do this. It was like promoting a
Yeah.
business,
Right.
and we both wanted to get a free haircut.
And
so
it was
we
a
did.
connection through Kelly. Like my
Yeah.
friend Kelly was like, you know, my friend has this thing and she like needs people to go caroling to promote her business, her hair cutting salon. What else do you do in a salon?
Well, I'll tell you what Sweeney Todd would do in that salon.
But anyway, so I don't know how it happened, but I asked you and you asked Will, or some connection, however that happened, whoever started it. The four of us went out in Wenham and was caroling around the city.
Yeah. Well, now that we're here, I just want to give a quick plug to Will Martin.
Yeah,
who,
totally.
if he ends up listening to this, I am still, to this day, completely convinced that that haircut he got for doing that caroling is what sent him on the career trajectory that he is on currently, because he always saw himself. I think self-perception is so important. He saw himself as the character-y guy, and then he got this haircut, and the haircut looked exactly like Hans from Frozen. That was the guy's name, right? Spoilers, he's bad. And everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, you look exactly like Hans from Frozen."
That's so funny.
And it helped shape Will's self-perception, and he started seeing himself, even though again Hans was the bad guy. I'm not saying Will is a bad guy, but he was clearly not like the goofy sidekick
Right.
type of guy.
Right.
And I think that helped change the way he saw himself. So if it was not for Kelly getting us caroling, you and I, who knows, may not have ended up
Yeah.
together, and Will would not be doing what he is today.
Totally. Yeah, that's crazy.
The power of Christmas.
Power of Christmas. On the note of Christmas, that year I wanted to be vulnerable again, and I have a hard time with singing, and I love to sing, but it's something that makes me very like nervous, and
Yeah.
I don't like the sound of my own voice, yada yada. But I was like, you know what? At Gordon they do this Christmas coffee house, and you know what? I want to do it this year. And so I asked David to sing a song with me. And I asked you to sing Baby It's Cold Outside.
Baby, it's cold outside. Yeah, not. This is like.
This is before.
Oh yeah. First of all, with that song itself, I
Yeah.
feel like we weren't really even thinking about
No.
the lyrics. And that Adina Menzel, Michael Bublé cover with that really adorable music video had just come
Yeah.
out, so we saw it as more innocent than it is. But for
Yeah.
anyone thinking like, and you were like, we'll sing that song together, that seems like explicitly, if not, at least romantic, if not sexual.
Right.
Doing that song.
But
It's not like we were singing Jingle Bells or Frosty the Snowman. Like, we were going in terms of Christmas songs.
yeah, we were like, let's pick. Yeah.
So that's the perception.
Yeah, and that was the first time we had used this term with each other. We said we had stage chemistry.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was as we were starting to get to know each other more and spending more time together. It was like, what is this undeniable thing? Let's label it stage chemistry, which
I think there was.
I think there absolutely was, which is why we worked so great together. Doing stuff.
Yeah, I performed in this coffee house, by the way, as well. And Christmas coffee house, I don't think I did any Christmas songs. I sang this weird song that somebody made up for a flash mob, because I just, at the time, I found it hilarious, and I was like, I do what I want. So it was like me and my brother and one of my buddies was accompanying me, and we were like, I love lunch, it's half the way to dinner. I love lunch, if that's a sin, then I'm a sinner. I'm not going to do the rest, but basically I did a hard pivot from that into Ed Sheeran.
Oh my gosh.
And then,
You're such a goofball.
I mean, honestly, that is just a good illustration of how Theresa is like, hey, this is college. Even though I'm vulnerable in this way, let me explore that. And I'm just being an ass clown, like, all the time. But at the end of my Ed Sheeran number.
Yeah, this was a poignant moment for me. His current girlfriend was there, and I was sitting like
Not current now, current then.
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah. What?
That could have sounded really bad.
No, I didn't even know my current girlfriend at that point in time.
His girlfriend at that time was at the show, and I was sitting like a couple of like rows behind her, and I'm sitting with my mentor from school and our dear friend Dan, who actually officiated our wedding. So we love him so much. Shout out to you, Dan.
Yeah, he was there from the beginning too.
He was there from the beginning. He was my mentor through all of my like. I was like, why am I feeling this way? And he was a great sounding board for me. But anyway, I'm sitting behind, and at the end of the song, David takes out a rose, and I get this like, I forget that his girlfriend is there, and I get this like butterfly in my stomach, and Dan and I look at each other, and we both honestly assumed you were going to give the rose to me, and he gives it to his girlfriend, obviously, because they're dating. And and I was like, yes, bring me back down to earth. Like, we are not a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was just a lot of ways that I was more or less oblivious to that moment, and more or less oblivious in general. But you were being watchful at the time, and that was very important, you know, for as our relationship kept developing. So Christmas happens, and then it's the end of that semester, and this was so funny. It was in the basement of Bromley Hall.
Bromley.
I remember we were I don't remember why I was there. Did you ask me to help you, or did I just end up there?
I was getting ready to do the spring semester in Italy. Amazing experience. Can't wait to tell you guys about it. If you don't already know. But I was trying to get my things together, and because I lived out of state, I needed a place to put my things so that way when I came back in the fall, like, they'd still be there. So I had stuff like my hockey bag and just other like odds and ends. So I was like, who's gonna help me? So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna ask David. So I asked David to help me bring it to storage, which was in Bromley. And yeah, so you helped me bring my stuff over there.
Yeah, and then one of my buddies, David Popa, another David. Hey, Popa! That's how he calls him. You don't need to know, but he's a very talented artist and a beautiful person. But anyways, he was single and ready to mingle at the time. And so, he came down for a second, and me, again, having no concept of what might be going on in Terry's head or heart, I'm like, hey, I know Popa, you want me to try to set you two up together?
And I'm like, oh, sure.
Sure.
Why not? My heart is in disarray anyway. That was a very interesting moment.
And then you were getting ready to, you went back here to Minnesota first, right?
Yep,
Before Italy.
for Christmas break, yeah.
We, like, my family held on to all your hockey stuff, and my mom
Which was so
just
nice,
heard
because it didn't
Terry.
fit, yeah.
My mom just heard Terry and definitely thought you were a dude.
Yeah, and she later told me, she's like, I thought you were a guy for like the longest time. And I was like,
So funny.
I'm not. I'm your daughter-in-law now.
I'm your future daughter-in-law.
But yeah.
Give us like, before we kind of get to our next section, we really had this whole semester where you were gone. You were in Italy, and this was me finishing out my time in college, but we both developed in a lot of ways, and the next time we saw each other, we were in very different situations.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just gonna touch on just super quick on like how I was growing in Italy, because as David and I are apart, like God is still working in us and in our lives and stuff. And I Italy was the most incredible time because it was truly a time to focus on not just myself, but like the greater sense of like the world too, and how who am I in this world, and to learn about art and to find myself and as an artist was a crazy realization that I could make art with my hands. Painting.
Trying to see these hands.
Trying to see these hands. I took a great liking to charcoal and oil paintings eventually, but especially in the beginning, charcoal. And it like just totally changed my life to know that I could draw something. And the depth of this program that I was in Orvieto, Italy was just undescribable. Learning every day to look beyond yourself and like reading this poetry every day as a class, and like digging deeper into life, and feeling this sense of freedom and groundedness. And I mean, I could literally just go on and on, but I came back a changed person.
Yeah.
In so many positive senses, and it was like the most positive experience I've had too, of like every day was just building upon the next day or the day before, and just so much gelato. Oh, so good. I
You should
literally
have just left it right there.
I know.
Gelato is enough.
I need to take you to Orvieto because it's a must. It's a must place to
I would
go.
love to. I love to do that. I speak fluent Italian. I've seen Rocky, and he's the Italian stallion, so I know. So me, what I have going on during that same time period is the last semester leading up to graduation, and I don't want to minimize how wonderful that time still was in my life. Like I'll always remember college and the friendships that I made there, but that kind of stumbling across the finish line, there were just a lot of unwise things that I prioritized, and I didn't give classes the energy that they deserved. I didn't give a lot of friendships the energy that they deserved. I had a chance to be in college at the same time as my younger brother, and in a lot of ways I feel like I neglected that relationship, and it all sort of culminated because it would take forever to get into a lot of details, but to all sort of culminated with this moment of quite literally crashing in a car. I fell asleep while driving and hit a car, thankfully, that was just parked, so nobody was in it. It was just like parked on street parking, and that was days before graduation. And I kind of had all these plans laid out for the summer, and then who knows beyond that. And everything got turned upside down because now all of a sudden I have, rent for this place I'm staying, and, these other bills and debts that are accumulating, including needing to be able to pay my parents back for smashing their car. And this person, I think his name was Kevin, very large man, who was explicit that he didn't want to have to get the police involved. And I was like, you're going to break every bone in my body if I don't pay this back. He ended up actually being very nice, and I like weirdly hung out with them and had a beer later. But they like just they was not, obviously nobody likes that you just smash their minivan because you fell asleep because you're being a dummy. So I kind of was forced into a situation where I took a job that I didn't want to. I moved back home, which at the time I didn't want to. And I was working on a concrete construction crew, not making use of a theater degree whatsoever. And I was in some situations that not just my external situations, but also what was going on internally was a bit of an identity crisis. So that is all going on in the interim before us seeing each other again.
Yeah, it's funny that like I was gaining identity and you were losing identity. Very interesting.
It's a zero-sum game.
Yeah. But yeah, so we are apart for a semester and a summer. And then I come back to Gordon. It's my senior year. And David had graduated. And obviously, I text him when I get into town. And I'm like, we have to get together. So early on in the, like when I first moved back, you came to hang out with me, and you picked me up in your Nissan Altima.
Mm-hmm. The Ultima.
The Altima.
It's the only way to drive.
And you took me to the Ugly Mug.
Shout out to the Ugly Mug
Yeah.
in Salem, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, best Nutella latte I've ever had.
They,
Place is bomb.
yeah, they're
It's like a breakfast
so
spot.
good. Yeah, it's a breakfast spot.
Smart.
The Ugly Mug, so good. So that was kind of our reunion. And we just picked back up with this this joy, this happiness to see each other. Like we were both in very different spots in our lives, but like it was like a bright shining light when I would see you. Like that spotlight never went away from the beginning. So we got breakfast, and then you brought me back, and you got really vulnerable with me, and you were telling me about your life. And
you were saying you remembered that it was raining.
yeah.
I didn't remember that detail.
Yeah, it was raining. Mm-hmm.
Just talking, one of the things that had gone on was I ended the long-term relationship that I was in, and it was over 5 years. So and even though in a lot of ways we were both kids during that time, it's still a long time to spend with anybody. So that was a big part of this, like, what is even going on? Like, what am I doing? What have I been doing? What am I supposed to be doing? And you were just the most wonderful person to talk to with that. Like, I got a lot of bad advice from people during that time of my life, but none of that was ever from you.
Yeah. My biggest thing. So when you told me that you broke up with your girlfriend at that time, and I literally was like, hallelujah, your signal, it's my turn. And then I was like, shh, Theresa, no, you can't think like this, you can't do that. And immediately just like the Holy Spirit hit me and was like, no, you need to give wisdom to this person. So I was like, no, David, you need to be single. And that was my advice before we ever talked about us. That never happened. It was just you opening up your heart to me and me telling you that you need to have time for you. You need to figure out who you are in all of this. And that was a really hard thing to say, because I just at that point wanted to be with you.
It was the most important thing to say, and it was the best way that you could have loved me as a friend at that point in time, and it was ultimately the best thing for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's big. I think that's it was one of the things that later I really thought back to and was like, whoa, that was big. That was Terry for the win in that moment. And it was exactly what I needed.
Yeah, and I I loved our continuous Nissan Altima conversations.
Yeah, we had many Altima hangouts.
Just hanging in the car, talking deep. And I started thinking, like, later on, like we would have these deep conversations of identity and spirituality and difficulty in life. And I was like, because I was very protective of myself. Like, I didn't want to go on dates. I didn't want to like open myself up to a guy, because I just wanted to be very protective of myself. And I was asking God, I was like, why is all this happening? And I had this thought of like, is God preparing David through me for me?
For me?
Like the weirdest.
By Theresa for
Teresa. Yeah. And I was like, nah. I kept putting that thought aside, because I was like, that's literally impossible. But all things are possible.
All things are possible.
Yeah.
So there you go. We're back together as friends, time is passing, and there's like no pressure, right? It was just always that joy that you were describing every time we got to hang out.
Yeah.
And then, as that year is going on, your last year in school, I'm working and I was traveling for work, and there were a lot of reasons that there was a lot of stuff going on. This ongoing identity crisis, and at the time there were a lot of things that were bumming me out without needing to get into why, but I just wanted to talk to somebody. I was actually in Florida at the time, and I was like, I just want to call somebody. Who am I going to call? I want to call Theresa. And you were always there for me in a time when I was kind of floating. You always helped ground me, and just always seemed to have exactly the right thing to say to help me get to the growth that I was supposed to get to.
And I do have to say, like, that is Jesus through me. Like, there's no way that I am that wise to get you on the path that you need to be. Like, that doesn't come from me. That's God.
Yeah. Amen. So yeah, that was important to make sure that we hit that point, because it's just like it was always there.
Yeah.
And it was so obviously a God thing. And then Terry, bum bum bum, went on a date.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had, it's so funny. I feel so uncomfortable even just talking about it, but I have such great friends. I really do. Girlfriends, and they were amazing my senior year. We were all so close, and like one night my friend Abby and I decided to go salsa dancing in Boston. So we went dancing.
So cool.
It was so much fun. And she's a great dancer too. And I met a guy, and we danced together. It's just so weird to even say. I'm like, how is this reality? Anyway, so we exchanged numbers at the end of the night, and then he, like, pushes me to go on a date with him. So I'm like, fine, I'll go. And all my friends were like, you have to go. Like, there was a lot of peer pressure, and that cop is coming to get me because I went on a date.
That siren outside is for you. Oh. I called the police the minute.
So I really let peer pressure take over my conviction, which I made at the beginning of my college experience, which was, I don't want to date because this time is for me. And I learned a big lesson, though. I went on a date with him, and nothing bad happened, and like, it was fine. It was just a nice night, and he like wanted to kiss me at the end of the night. I was like, no, that's too far. This is too much for me. So I go back, and I realized that, like, dating is not for me. This was too much. Like, I felt so many feels, and I felt like I just felt uncomfortable for some reason, and I'm not going to go into like a ton of detail, but for me as a person, I realized that dating is too much for me, and that's my own truth. And I wanted the person I date is going to be my husband, and that is a severe like thing to think, but that is my own truth, and that was a big lesson for me to learn, that that's what I wanted to.
Yeah, you kind of had these two things going on, where one, you were like, I don't even want to experience that during college. I want college to be about my education, and also you like your artistic journey and all these other things. But there's an undeniable sense of like, you see other people start to get with other people, and that is always going to be there. I think that the way that you described it to me, it just seemed like to you felt like you didn't want to try on a bunch of different hats, and the thing is, that is what, that, like you said, that's the truth that you felt inside of you.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's like weird or crazy, and I also don't feel the fact that I had several people that I dated, I don't feel judged by you or anything in that way. What was important is that it led us to exactly where we are.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was definitely conflicted when I heard that story about you going on a date and all this stuff. And I think, honestly, part of it was thinking about you dancing with somebody else. I felt kind of jealous of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an interesting moment. That was a little bit of like maybe ground shifting underneath me moment. But the big shift was coming. We're into your last semester now.
Yeah.
We kind of hung out more and more. I feel like, and we had at our college, it's called Gordon College, and they had Gordon Globes, right? Like Golden Globes. And it was all, short films, people's different videos and stuff. And then we all went out to the Cheesecake Factory afterwards. It was so much fun.
Yeah, and it was fun because your younger brother was in school, and my senior year we were in the same major, so I got to know.
Yeah, we hung out a lot.
And we all hung out together, and then I got to be friends with the theater department, and like you knew them from your years at Gordon, and so we all went to the Cheesecake Factory, and this was a big moment for me and my friends because you and like everyone else in the car you were with came and pulled up to the campus apartment I was living in and like honking and stuff, and I'm up in my like apartment dorm whatever with my friends, and they're like, who's that outside? And I was like, no one. And they're like, it's David. And I was like, I'm just gonna go like out with them or whatever. And so I like run downstairs, and David comes and scoops me up and like literally picks me up and is like pretending to kidnap me. And it was like this flirtatious like moment of like, you're putting me into the car or whatever, and it was cute.
There's nothing that says flirtatious like get in the ultimate.
I got a lot of crap from my friends after that.
Yeah.
Because they were like, yeah, we see what's happening.
I think in a lot of ways without me really realizing it, because I couldn't even see myself very clearly still at this point in time. And anyone who has been through that kind of internal journey will understand exactly what I'm saying, is that I was starting to notice you before I was even ready to see that I was starting to notice you. So if that doesn't make any sense, just wait. Maybe it will eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Other moments that happened, and like, and I almost feel like this is all leading up to like facing reality, but we're just living in these moments of like, then the real Oscars happen, and we're both actors who want to pursue acting, and like, so it's a fun like thing for us to watch. And we were gonna go watch the Oscars at a friend's house, and before I was like doing homework in the library, and like David like meets me in there, and he's like, because he's gonna drive me to go see the Oscars, and he sits down next to me, and I was at a table alone. And I don't know why that was such a significant moment for me, because I was literally like, oh my gosh, David Alvarado is sitting next to me in the library, and everybody can see, and oh my gosh. Anyway,
I
such
think
a girly
that is
moment.
what it is. No, it's just like the public perception.
Yeah,
It's definitely not something I was thinking about. And also maybe the third time that I was ever in that library.
That's so bad.
And all I was doing
was a lot of classrooms in there.
all I was doing was distracting you.
LOL. So anyway, we get to watch the Oscars, and you almost didn't sit next to me during the Oscars, and I was like,
Might be.
Are you gonna? I like
Don't
left
yell.
a space for him, and I was like, is he gonna sit next to me? And then he did, thankfully. Phew. But yeah.
It was always like performance in general, and we danced together, and then we sang together, and we both had this idea of like we would love to be actors someday, and we were like, oh, well, but we'll be like Leo and Kate, right? Obviously romantically involved in film. Great chemistry.
Chemistry.
But
they're
in real
for
life,
each other, lifelong friends, but
anyways, it was some kind of forecasting that was going on.
yeah.
And then we did get to end up dancing together again. Just something for fun that we were doing in the Bennett Center. That was like the gym at the school, and they had this little aerobic studio / dance room.
Such a good size. I miss that.
And you were actually getting together with my brother Andrew for like every now and then doing hip hop dance stuff.
He is an incredible dancer, and we started to become friends, and he would come over to Gordon and like it would either just be him and I, or Daniel, or other like students at Gordon who wanted to learn dance too.
Yeah.
He did little workshops.
From my beautiful brother Andrew, who has legs for days.
He has legs for days. Yes.
But anyways,
so
this is something I choreographed, and it was a waltz, and there was 4 of us, and you and me were, partners. You were my example for kind of teaching this, and I really, there's a million words that I could say about this day, but the most important thing is that it was while we were dancing together, and not just like reflecting afterwards, like while it's happening, while the 1, 2, 3 is happening, there's a romantic shift going on, and I started seeing you and just feeling you differently. And it's one of those moments where the room just starts filling with this invisible but yet like thick sense that everybody has, but nobody's gonna say because you can't say it out loud. And that was weird because it was something that when it's right under your nose and then all of a sudden you see it, it's like, oh, how'd you get there?
Yeah, that's a great description. And what song was that dance to?
It's John McLaughlin. It was from Enchanted. So Close.
Yeah,
Thank you. Oh my
I
gosh.
always forget the name of the song, but yeah, that song is. Well, can I foreshadow that? No.
What?
Oh wait, that was our first dance song.
Yes. Yeah. It ended up being our first dance song for our wedding.
Right. So that kind of just shows like how important that moment was.
Yeah. And that is all that needs to be said about that right now. And just understand that we really started coming together in a romantic way that still had not been realized, I think, tangibly up to that point.
Yeah, that's a good word, tangible. So
today's podcast brought to you by the word tangible. We're getting there.
Yeah,
we're getting to the end of part 1.
Just a small chunk left in here.
And it's just important to know that that we're charging towards the end of your senior year. And it was a very exciting senior year for you. You had a really wonderful senior project that you did that actually was deep and meaningful and was beautiful and a representation of your journey. And I'm still having everything that's going on in my life. All of these things are happening, but we we're still hanging out together every now and then, and it's still this unsaid thing.
Yeah.
We were running in the woods together. Yeah. That sounds weird, but we were going like a
jog.
Not like,
running away.
And then we just had that moment that I'll never forget. And you told me that I was going to be a great dad someday because we had interacted with that little kid. Yeah. And that's always something I've been kind of nervous about. And I was like, man, you always have these ways of saying these things that mean so much to me.
Yeah, and it's funny because like we kind of went on like a date, but it wasn't a date; it was a friend date. You took me to ice cream and a driving range, and you didn't give me your sweater when I was cold. I remember that.
I think I gave it to you eventually.
You did.
For the record, I was very cold too. But at least you had the driving range there to smash the golf balls to get your frustration out. True. But yeah, we had those little friend dates all the time, going to shows together. Yeah. And then it was after a show that we had gone together, right?
Sweaty Tooth, which was like the improv group that you
team,
were in.
Yeah. No, I wasn't in at the time because I was no longer there. But we had the Talk in the Woods.
The Talk in the Woods. This is like a significant part of our story. Like
it was big,
heavy. It was after the show, and it was, more nighttime, and we were like, let's go take a walk. And as we're walking and talking and like David's sharing where he's at in life, I am feeling like so torn. Like the definition of like feeling like you're being torn apart. Like God is telling me to share my heart with him and share with him that I care about him. But I like literally cannot. It feels like burning words on my tongue, and I can't get them out. And it was like literally the most like heart-wrenching moment of my life, because I was like, I want to tell him, but I can't put him in that position to like make a decision. And what have I been saying all this time of him being single and like all this other stuff, and I don't want to date, and blah, blah, blah. So I yeah, and you're just sharing your heart with me, and how you've been growing, and then I just spit it out. I spit it out, and I tell you that I care about you. And I didn't really like put anything out there, but I was like, David, I care about you. Um, and yeah, now I'm getting all caught up.
Yeah. Hey, you made it. I don't remember the exact words, but I think you kind of were like, I want us to be together.
Yeah.
And for anyone who is listening, when it is all laid out this way, it seems absurdly obvious that we both should have seen all this coming. But, you know, when you're still just a kid at 22, 3, 4, whatever it is, it's not always obvious. And in a lot of ways, I was just starting to live a little bit more intentionally and a little less passively or impulsively, and everything else that I had going on. And I knew I care about you, and I want to be friends with you. I never want anything to change that. But there was a lot of reasons why I felt like I don't want to ruin this. And also, I don't even trust myself to be like a good partner in a relationship. And yeah, there was a lot of reasons that I kind of, you know, turned you down. It was like, I don't feel the same way. Yeah. And a big part of that was because
literally crushing.
Yeah. A big part of that was because I didn't even know how to understand how I felt at the time.
Yeah. And as crushed and like defeated in a way I felt, I also felt happy that he made that decision. And I think that was the right answer at that time. Mm-hmm. And I felt like all of the conversations in the Ultima that we had about being like finding your identity had come to fruition, and you were like taking ownership of how you felt and like what is going to be best for you. And I was like, you know what, I can respect that. And I think that was definitely the right answer.
It was. And also, that was like, what, a month left before you graduated?
Yeah.
And then you would have had all these years of like such important personal growth. And then just the nature of how it would have worked is then your whole college experience is defined by this relationship that happens right at the finish line. Like, it was right for you to finish strong. And I'm happy that it played out the way that it did. And, you know, I felt sad as well. A little confused as well, obviously still wanting to be friends, but you know, where did, after that pivotal moment, we held hands as we left the woods, and you walked back up to your apartment, and I, you know, ended up going home. And like, where was your headspace after that?
And it was sweet because you like offered to drive me up to my apartment, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna walk. And there was like a hill that I had to walk up or whatever, and I was just thinking, like, I feel sad and definitely crushed, but not rejected, and not like my heart didn't feel like it was broken. I felt confident in the way that God had been working in you and through me to talk to you, and like it felt like right, you know. And I was like, all right, I got my answer. We're not going to be together, so I'm just going to move on. Yeah.
And I told my mom, because I always talk to my mom about everything, and she knew Terry at that time, and was like, oh, and what did you say? You know, and I was like, I told her what I said, and she was like, okay, all right. And I could tell she seemed confused, but that's fine. My mom seems confused sometimes. No, But she was just asking me like, and you don't feel the same way?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll remember so vividly what I told her. I was like, Mom, if I was just gonna sit down and write on paper exactly what I would want in the girl that I'm gonna be with, I would have made Theresa. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
who it would be. But there was still partly a disconnect there, and it was conflicting, confusing, all of those things, and it woke me up though. I'll tell you that. And it made me
Yeah.
really start thinking, and um, realizing that I needed to be able to get out of my own head and out of my own little bubble to see what was going on around me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I think that's a great place to end this
Yeah.
first part.
Until next week.
Until next week. Yeah. That was a lot. Thanks for like sticking in there with us and hanging in there, sticking in.
This has been so wonderful, like documenting how we got to where we are.
Yeah.
And we are like 30 minutes away from it being midnight, and then it'll be our anniversary. So this has been so much fun. I just love being with you and spending time with you.
And reliving these moments, like the hard ones and the good ones. They're just like so vivid in my mind.
I know,
so,
right?
Yeah. We can only do so much to describe the moments that we experienced.
All right, guys, until next week, and this is not going to be like when they do like the flash to the next week and you get to see a preview. But next week, I want to do like the Lost thing. Previously. Can I do that?
We can definitely do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely tune in next week and make sure you guys like and subscribe to our channel. Watch our other videos. If this is your first time like listening to us, listen to the rest. Get to know who we are and go to our social medias. We have them all in the description. And I really enjoyed this.
Go find somebody to love today.